One would be focus on the end goal. So the end goal is helping a patient, because for a lot of people, especially when you're in the lower years, you're doing basic science, you're looking at a lot of information that you're not really sure how it applies. Focus on the end goal, and that eventually that information will help someone. And the second thing is create an organized system so that you can access that information easily, because once you are in front of a person, it can be very difficult to figure out where you have the information or what you should prescribe and how often and when and why. All those types of details you've learned somewhere, but you need to be able to find them.
Exactly.
As much as possible. I mean, this is more easily said than done. But just try to soak it all in. There's a lot of information and a lot of resources, like people that have a lot of valuable things to say. So as much as possible, it's hard because there's so many demands on your time. But try to sit down with somebody who you respect as an ND or as a person, and just try to chat with them and see, find out a little bit more about them, what makes them go, why are they good at what they do, because that may spur something in yourself. So that's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say is whatever you can do to try to get more exposure as a student, the better, because you build upon knowledge. So if it's maybe doing a naturopathic medical brigade, or if you have a friend who's a paramedic and you can do a ride along, great. Or if it's somebody who's a medical doctor and will allow you to observe with them, or to observe in hospital rounds, or whatever the case may be. The more clinical exposure you get, the better it is. So not to ignore those kinds of opportunities, or to try to even seek some out, because you never know where they might be. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking. So definitely seek out those kinds of clinical exposure opportunities, because we learn a lot about in books and theory and so on, and classroom and so on. So it's great to learn it another way as well.
I think the business thing always comes up, right? Running a business, and you don't really realize, and I don't think it's even anything you can learn in the college. It's just stuff you learn as you go. And so being thorough and doing your research before you enter into any sort of agreement with clinics or whatever you're going to do, leases or anything like that. They don't really teach us all those things. But one thing I did do when I first graduated, which has been super helpful, and you can do this when you're a student also, is I took a introduction to desktop publishing course at Seneca. It was an evening part-time program, and I learned how to use Photoshop and InDesign, and so, I mean, I can't do my own website or anything like that, but I can make my own flyers, my own brochures and things like that. So not to have to pay for those things, or just be able to do that quickly, business cards and things, has been super, super helpful. Yeah.
And that
Just
helps
a
you
ton
be
saver.
self-sufficient too.
Totally, window signage, anything, you can design all those things.
That's great.
And that was just a semester, once a week for a couple of hours. So it was I did that as soon as I graduated. And honestly, it's been actually really, really good investment. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
We need to remember to find a balance. So I think that we're very driven individuals, and we're here for a lot of fantastic reasons, and the course is challenging, and it can be easy to become disheartened and to become disenchanted, especially when we're not doing things for ourselves to recharge and to remind ourselves of why we're here. So if we can discover a balance, if we can find things that nourish us and take care of ourselves as well, I think not only will it help you get through the program and enjoy the program, but when you actually are out in practice, it'll also help for you to excel.
Oh, so much to share. For ND students out there, I just really feel for you because there's just so much, to learn, to know. I would say take a breath and let go of expectations that you need to know it all. It will come. You probably, at any stage of your naturopathic education, feel like you don't know anything. I was there. I can continue to be there. But it turns out that you do. And it turns out that, even if you were pulling all-nighters studying, that pharmacology in first year, whatever pharmacology happens, there is something that's there, that there is something that, will brilliantly come to you within a clinical experience with a patient sitting in front of you. So just let go of that expectation and trust the process. Try not to compare yourself to others. Everybody has a different way of learning, and everybody has a different way of retaining information, of all of it. So try not to be discouraged by those around you who might be way ahead of the assignments and the exam studying and all of that. If you're a person that needs pressure, then you're a person that needs the pressure to study in the last week. I don't know, right? So try to avoid that comparison and just trust yourself and trust your strategies and make that work for yourself. So, really the expectations one is huge. It's really important for you to just continue to study. I'm not saying that. Continue to know the material and find out more in different ways. And again, be critical. Don't take anything at face value, because especially in naturopathic medicine, things are constantly changing. There's always new evidence. And so, you can be the expert in anything if you continue to be on top of it. I will say that one of the best things that you can do as a student and as an intern is to really know your resources. So get comfortable with your resources, whatever they may be, whether they're online resources or electronic ones or print ones, because there's no way that you're going to know all of the information and all of the resources, but you might find comfort in knowing where you can find that information, right? When you have a patient sitting in front of you that utters something that you've never heard of before, you don't necessarily need to know the answer in the moment, and even the conventional specialists might not. So you will find comfort in knowing that you have that information somewhere and you can look it up, and you can say to that patient, "I'll get back to you," and that's perfectly okay. So that kind of coalescing of information through your 4 years into something that you can easily access as a practitioner will give you a lot of comfort and confidence, and that's something that you will continue to cultivate as a practitioner. So you'll start to feel comfortable, like I said, with that uncertainty. You'll start to feel confident even if you don't know all of the material or know all of the answers, and that's really what you're seeking as a practitioner, as opposed to knowledge on everything, because that's just it's an expectation you're not going to fulfill.
So I would say hang in there. In that, I at least think back to my experience as a student, and I remember it just feeling like a very long process, right? Because there's so much that's expected of you. But again, I mean, ultimately you'll be far better off for everything that you've gone through in the program. By the time you graduate, I assure you that you will feel like you know something. And by the time you graduate and you write NCLEX and you've studied for whatever it is, the amount of time that you have, you will write NCLEX and say, "Oh my goodness, I am a naturopathic doctor. I know about this. I know about Asian med. I know about homeopathy. I know about primary care." And it's a really awesome moment.
Yeah.
So I'd say hang in there. Make sure you stay balanced. Make sure you do things that make you happy and help you manage the stress that I'm sure comes with the program. But I would also say that try and kind of enjoy what you're doing as you're doing it, because you have a really nice opportunity to learn and to get education, which a lot of people definitely around the world don't have that opportunity. And we get to learn about stuff that has to do with energetics and looking at your mind-body connection, and it's so profound that hopefully it can impact you in a positive way as you're learning about it. So try and look at the good and hang in there, because it will come to an end sooner rather than later, and you might look back also on these years with longing and think, yeah, I kind of miss it.
Yeah.
So again, I'm kind of the research guy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about evidence-based medicine and what that really means. So
that's great.
So there's 3 parts to evidence-based medicine. One part is the research. There's 2 other parts that are also incredibly important, and the 3 have to balance. So one of the other parts of it is clinical experience. So not just of yourself, but of the profession as a whole. And the third part is patient values. So first, for the research side of things, it's not just here's psoriasis and I want to do this, and I found a journal article, a trial that actually supports this. It's about finding the best available evidence. So if there were 3 systematic reviews and meta-analyses, and they're kind of, might work, might not great results, don't skip those and dig for that one RCT that says, wow, this really worked. Go with the best available evidence. So if there is a systematic review, go over that, read it, see if it's biased, see if it makes sense, see if you agree with the authors, and that becomes the basis for whatever treatment you're considering. As far as, does this treatment actually work for this condition? Mm-hmm. Now, it may not answer your question specifically, because sometimes, obviously, a patient is more complex than a systematic review. But you use that systematic review to help inform your clinical decision-making. On the other side of things, what if there is no research? There's no systematic review, there's no RCT, there's one little lowly rat study. But it's an herb we've been using for 20,000 years, and there's 3 case reports, and that's all you can find, and then you've got your textbooks. Use those case reports, use those textbooks. That is considered evidence. It may not be as good as an RCT for a specific herb in a specific condition, but it does qualify as evidence. So that's what I mean by best available evidence. If all you've got is 3 case reports, then that's what you got. And then if you've got more, then use more. Along with that, I guess that, and if all you've got is that clinical experience and the other supervisors who've tried it and who've done it, maybe the case report's not even published, then you move towards that level of evidence. The second part of this is clinical experience. What have you tried? What have you seen in private practice, in clinic as an intern, when shadowing clinic in first, second, or third year? What have you seen that's worked? What did you see that maybe it didn't work? How does that compare to our clinical values of therapeutic order? So how does all of this play in? Maybe you don't have the experience. That's what your supervisors are for. That's what your colleagues are for. Once you graduate, you can still call up buddies from class. As a 4th year intern, you've got groups of 5, 6, 7 interns, round table. Preview, that's what preview and review is for. Learn from your supervisor, learn from your classmates. If someone has a special interest in things, for probiotics, I'm actually kind of weak with probiotics. But one of my classmates is very, very strong in probiotics. So I picked her brain. I wrote down a whole pile of notes. I still need to memorize those notes, but I have them there. And if I forget them, if I lose them, I can always call her up or Facebook her and say, hey, how does that work again? And get that help. That's her clinical experience, and based on her research as well, and some of her supervisors and the learning that she got from them. So we can use that, and that helps to balance out that RCT that's kind of relevant, but they miss the fact, like it doesn't apply to this particular patient for some reason, and that's where the clinical experience helps to balance that out. The third part of this, and this is really important, is patient preference. If all of the research says this patient should be on a statin, but the patient says, no way, I am not taking that drug, what are you going to do? Go back to your MD and take that statin? No. You work with the patient. If you suggest that the patient should take this herbal combination, and they take one taste of it and decide, this tastes horrible, I can't do this. Or you offer them an orthomolecular treatment, a single nutrient that they can take and will fix all of their issues. Rare, but sometimes what they need is a supplement. And they say, I don't want to take any pills. I'm really happy with teas. I've got these 5 herbs in my garden. Can I use one of them? And after you go over all of the options, and one of those herbs is ideal for that patient, and they're willing to make a tea 3 times a day, if that's what they're willing to do, sometimes you have to go with it. Educate, take your time to teach them and say, this is a better option, but if you're not going to do this, okay, yes, this will help. We can try it, we'll see if it works. Maybe there's no evidence, but it might work. Versus this thing over here that really will, but they want to do that one thing that might work. Try it. Let the patient dictate at least a little bit. Just make sure they're going to do it safely. Make sure they're safe, but then keep them healthy as best you can. And don't take it personally if they say, you know what, I don't want to do any of this, or none of it's working. If it's not working and they need to be referred back to the MD, say, you know what, maybe I can't help you. If you're not willing to do these things, and then I just can't help you. And it's okay, and it's not your fault. It's the patient's choice, and let them make that choice. Do your best to educate, and leave it in their hands.
What I mentioned earlier, and that is that you chose to be here. And with every choice that you make, then you know that there are certain things that there's certain things that you're going to learn. There's certain things that are going to challenge you to be able to learn. And so in acknowledging that this is a choice, number one, and that there are going to be lessons and challenges, then roll with it. Really, really roll with it. I feel sometimes we get a little bit too serious, and we tend to forget the things that brought us to where we are and why we're doing what we do. And I'm not saying don't be serious, absolutely be serious, but remember how to balance that in your lives, because it does make a difference. If you feel like you're struggling, then know when to pull back. If you feel like you're not putting in enough, then know when to step up. If you feel whatever, there's some adjustment that needs to be made. But I would say definitely remember that this is a choice, and then take responsibility for that choice as best as you can, given the resources that you can and the time that you're in. I would say.